I want you to quietly follow Zara, she instructed him. No one must know. Find out who she's seeing. I want details. Everything. The man nodded without questions. For the next few days, he followed Zara carefully. He tailed her from the house to her office, from the office to a small restaurant in Surulere, where she met a young man. He observed them sitting together, talking, laughing, sometimes holding hands. He returned to Mrs. Adenuga with the details. The very next day, Mrs. Adenuga, followed by 2 security men, visited Ebuka's 1-bedroom apartment. I am Chief Mrs. Adenuga. I will make this simple, she said. Leave my daughter. Disappear from her life. This is 5 million naira. Enough to start over anywhere. The sun blazed over the crowded streets of Mile 12 Market in Lagos. It was a place where chaos and colour collided, where the scent of roasted corn mixed with the aroma of freshly cut vegetables, and where everyone seemed to be in a rush. Zara Adenuga, the only daughter of Chief Adewale Adenuga, billionaire oil magnate and CEO of Adenuga Conglomerate, walked into the market alone, without security. She was tired of the suffocating expectations of the elite class and the security that followed her around. On this particular day, she had insisted that she wanted to drive out alone. She drove her driver's Toyota Camry, wanting to feel like the common man for once. Dressed in simple Ankara jumpsuit to blend with the crowd, Zara moved about in the market. Air of relief washed over her. With a camera slung over her shoulder, she moved through the buzzing market, taking pictures. She snapped a few shots. An elderly woman balancing a basket on her head, a boy chasing after a goat, a trader arguing passionately with a customer. She bought roasted corn and munched as she walked through the market, taking more shots. Then a man caught her attention. He sat beneath a mango tree at the far end of the market, quietly sipping water from a sachet, his wheelbarrow resting beside him. There was a calmness about him, a composed presence that pulled her in. Zara instinctively raised her camera and clicked. The sound of the shutter made him look up, and their eyes met. She felt something strange stir inside her immediately. He was striking. Dark-skinned, lean but strong, with a jawline that could have belonged to a model. His eyes were clear and intelligent. For a split second she forgot to breathe. "Excuse me," he said, standing up and dusting off his trousers. "Did you just take a picture of me?" Zara blinked, taken aback. She hadn't expected such articulate English from someone pushing a wheelbarrow. Yes, I did. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." He stepped closer, curious. "Why would you take a picture of a stranger without asking?" I just found the composition interesting," she stammered. "You were, still, peaceful. It caught my eye." "Are you a photographer?" he asked, his tone calm but inquisitive. "Yes," she replied quickly, then added, "just as a hobby." He studied her for a moment. "You don't look like someone who comes here often. You're wearing expensive perfume. Your sandals don't belong on these roads." Zara simply smiled and extended a hand. "I am Zara." He hesitated, then shook it. "And I am Ibuka." She felt a strange jolt at the contact. "Nice to meet you, Ibuka." They got along quickly, and Ibuka took her round the market, while she took more shots. When it was time for her to leave, she stood reluctantly. "Thank you, Ibuka. This was refreshing." "You're welcome, Zara. I hope this isn't the last time I see you," he said, smiling. "It won't be," she said softly. "I'll come again." As she walked away, she couldn't help glancing back. Ibuka was watching her, the same calm look in his eyes. What she didn't know was that the moment she captured him on camera, she had also captured something in her heart. Ibuka couldn't stop thinking about her. Even as he pushed his wheelbarrow through the crowded market the next day, his thoughts kept returning to the strange yet beautiful girl with the camera. But he quickly reminded himself of his financial status. Although Zara didn't tell him exactly who she was, he knew they didn't belong to the same class. He had expected never to see her again. Girls like her didn't return to places like this. But 3 days later, Just before noon, as he loaded sacks of onions for a trader, he heard the voice. "Hi again." He turned sharply. Zara stood a few feet away, holding her camera. "You came back," he said, surprised. Zara smiled and walked up to him. She walked with him to deliver the onions he had just loaded, after which they found their way back to the mango tree where she had met him the first time. She studied him closely and asked, "What's your qualification? I mean, you speak so well. You don't sound like someone who should be here pushing a wheelbarrow." There was a long pause. "I'm a graduate," he said at last. "First class in economics, University of Nigeria, Nsukka." She blinked. "Wait, first class? Then why?" "Because certificates don't feed people in this country," he cut in, his voice calm but firm. "After Noisky, I applied for jobs for 2 years. Nothing came. My mother got sick. My younger brother needed school fees. I couldn't sit and watch them suffer." Zara fell silent. Her gaze dropped. "This," he said, gesturing at the wheelbarrow, "was the only job I could get without connection or waiting." Zara wanted to ask more, so many questions were rising, but he was already picking up his barrow. "I have to work," he said. Zara asked for his phone number, which he gave willingly. Then she asked him to prepare and send his CV to an email, which he gave him. They parted ways, and Zara began to make plans on how to fix him somewhere in her father's company. She didn't return to the market for a long time, but she called him every single day. She found so much joy talking to him, and she felt like she couldn't go a day without hearing from him. She realized then that she had fallen in love with Ebuka, the wheelbarrow pusher. Zara changed completely and became happier and more alive. Her laughter had become more spontaneous, her voice lighter, her energy calm and unbothered. Her parents noticed, but they said nothing. At first. Her father, Chief Adewale Adenuga, watched her over dinner one evening, the way she pushed food around her plate, humming quietly to herself, completely at peace. "You've been smiling a lot these days, Zara," her mother finally said, breaking the silence. Zara looked up and shrugged casually, just in a good mood. Zara, of course, had no intention of telling them about Ebuka. That would be madness. Ebuka was the very definition of what her parents would never approve of. They wouldn't believe it if she told them that the man who had captured her attention wasn't a CEO or an Ivy League scholar, but a wheelbarrow pusher. One who spoke like a professor and carried his burdens with quiet strength. Noticing Zara's newfound happiness, her parents took it upon themselves to play matchmaker, hoping to spark a romantic connection for their daughter, who had shown little interest in relationships thus far. Zara returned home one Tuesday evening, tired after a long day managing operations at the Lekki branch of one of her father's companies. She entered the living room expecting peace and quiet, only to find her mother and father seated with a stranger. The young man stood the moment she entered. He was tall, clean-shaven, and strikingly handsome. "Zara," her mother said quickly, standing with excitement. "Come and meet Darlington, Chief Ajayi's son." Zara blinked, then offered a polite nod as she extended her hand. "Nice to meet you," she said. "Pleasure is mine," Darlington replied smoothly. "Your parents have told me so much about you." Zara glanced at her parents, immediately understanding what this was. This wasn't just a friendly visit. This was a quiet introduction. Her mother's face was glowing with pride. Darlington recently completed his MBA in London. He's now managing part of his father's fintech business. Very focused young man. Zara smiled faintly and took a seat. Her mind was already drifting. She answered the few questions asked of her, nodded where appropriate, and gave short, controlled responses. After a few minutes, Darlington looked at her and said casually, "I'd really like us to go out sometime, maybe dinner?" Zara didn't hesitate. "I appreciate the gesture, but I'm not interested in anything serious at the moment," she said gently. The silence in the room was instant and deafening. Darlington cleared his throat, clearly surprised. "Oh, well, that's fine. No pressure. We can just keep in touch." After Darlington left, her father quietly asked to see her in his study. When she entered the study, he looked at her and said, "I'm not angry, but I need to understand why you keep turning down good men." Zara hesitated before she responded, "I just don't want to be pushed into anything, not for image, not for status." Her father leaned back. "You have the freedom to choose, Zara, but understand that the Adenuga name carries weight. Legacy is not built on emotions, it's built on vision, on alignment and on choosing wisely." Zara nodded, after which her father dismissed her. Later that night, in the quiet of her room, she called Ebuka and they spoke for a while, lifting her spirit once again. She went to bed, full of smiles. After their first meeting, Darlington kept calling and sending messages to Zara. She replied them initially. At first he called once a day, then twice, then came the endless messages, some cheerful, some pleading. She began to ignore them. Darlington's persistence took a bolder turn when he showed up at the Adenuga residence one evening, unannounced. He had come bearing flowers and dressed in designer native wear, confident that he could charm his way into Zara's heart, but she barely acknowledged his presence. When she returned from work, she walked past him at the entrance with a brief nod and a simple "hi." Her mother was embarrassed. She tried to cover the awkward silence with small talk, but even she couldn't deny the obvious. Zara was simply not interested. That weekend, Ebuka received an interview invitation to one of the Adenuga companies, a logistic company that coordinated small-scale deliveries across parts of Lagos. He called Zara to inform her and she was happy. "Be at your best and I wish you good luck," she told him simply. She still hadn't revealed her true identity at that time. Ebuka went for the job interview, and he was eventually employed to work as one of the auditors of the company. His joy knew no bounds, knowing he'd finally leave behind his grueling days of pushing barrows and lugging luggage in the market. He called his mother and only brother and shared the good news with them. He also shared the good news with Zara. With his future looking brighter, Ebuka resumed work, ready to take on new challenges. Within just 2 months of joining the team, Ebuka had won over the hearts of almost every staff member. His exceptional work ethic, punctuality and dedication to his duties were truly impressive, but it was his infectious smile that really set him apart. With a monthly salary of 200,000 naira, Ebuka felt grateful and blessed, often expressing his heartfelt thanks to Zara for giving him a chance and transforming his life. He rented a 1-bedroom apartment close to the office and moved in, leaving the former apartment he shared with 3 other wheelbarrow pushers. He kept in touch with Zara, keeping their relationship simply at the friendship level, although they didn't visit each other's houses. They were on call one day when she asked if he would like to have dinner with her. He agreed, so she sent him an address. It was a quiet, decent restaurant tucked away in Surrey, not fancy, not loud, but clean, calm, and perfect for 2 people who were slowly discovering something beautiful. She drove to the restaurant in a Toyota Camry, owned by her family driver, as Ebuka was still not aware of who she was. She dressed simply that night, black jeans, a loose white top, flat sandals. Ebuka was already seated when she walked in. He looked up the moment she stepped through the door, and the soft smile that crossed his face made her heart flutter. He had cleaned up well. His shirt was neatly pressed, his hair freshly cut, his entire presence quietly confident but still humble. They exchanged shy smiles as she sat opposite him. The meal was simple: jollof rice, grilled fish and soft drinks. But the magic wasn't in the food. It was in the way their eyes kept meeting across the table, in the silences that didn't feel awkward, and in the small, stolen glances when the other wasn't looking. They talked about ordinary things: the market, books, funny people they'd met. Zara laughed easily. Ebuka watched her, his heart doing things he didn't quite understand. When they finished eating, she suggested they took a walk outside. The night air was cool, the streets less busy. They walked quietly at first, side by side, until Zara's hand brushed against his. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. Slowly, deliberately, she slipped her fingers into his, intertwining them. They walked like that for a few minutes, hand in hand, like 2 people who had finally found something precious in a world that rarely gave second chances. Then he stopped walking. She turned to look at him. "Zara," he said quietly, almost like he was afraid of his own words. "Are you sure about this?" She frowned slightly, her heart pounding. "About what?" "About me?" he replied, meeting her eyes. "You know where I come from. You know the kind of life I live. I don't have much to offer, no money, no background, nothing fancy." Zara squeezed his hand gently. "You have something," she said softly. "You have a good heart, and that's more than most people I know." He stared at her for a long, silent moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and touched her face, his thumb brushing lightly against her cheek as if unsure if she was real. Zara's breath caught, and then, as if the air between them had thinned, he leaned in and their lips met. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was soft and warm, like a promise whispered in the dark. From that day, Zara became extraordinarily happy, and even her staffs noticed it. She stopped visiting her father's logistic company where Ebuka worked. Instead, they sent her reports online. Anytime she was going out with him, she dressed simply and wore glasses. She even purchased a modest Toyota Camry, which she drove to their meetings, wanting to keep a low profile. Her goal was to connect with him on a genuine level, untainted by her wealth and status. So she carefully concealed her true identity, eager to experience a relationship built on mutual connection rather than material possessions. Zara's mother, Mrs. Adenuga, had spent the last few weeks observing her daughter quietly, piecing together the strange puzzle that was slowly forming before her eyes. Zara, who once walked around their mansion with a distant, distracted look, now moved with a quiet joy, a glow in her eyes she didn't bother hiding. But what troubled her mother wasn't the glow, it was the source of it. She had watched as Zara brushed off Darlington's calls, ignored the polite messages from the young billionaire, and even walked past him in their living room without a second glance when he came visiting. It was unlike her daughter. And as a mother who believed in control, structure, and social order, she knew something, or someone, had her daughter's attention. One evening, unable to contain her curiosity any longer, she walked into Zara's room after dinner. Zara was seated on her bed, scrolling through her phone with a soft smile on her lips. Mrs. Adenuga didn't waste time. "Zara," she began, her voice calm but firm, "why are you avoiding Darlington?" Zara looked up, surprised but composed. "Mum, we've talked about this. I'm not interested in him." Her mother folded her arms and stared at her. "You haven't been interested in anyone we've introduced to you, but lately you've been glowing. Someone has your attention." For a moment, Zara hesitated. She hadn't planned to reveal anything yet. Not until she was sure. Not until she could control the narrative. But something told her it was time to say something, even if only partially. "I'm seeing someone," she said quietly, "but I'll introduce him to you when the time is right." Her mother's eyes sharpened immediately. "Who is he?" Zara shook her head. "Not now. When I'm ready." The older woman's lips pressed into a thin line. "You know this family's name carries weight, Zara. Be careful." Zara nodded but said nothing more. Her mother left the room without another word, but her mind was already racing. She trusted her instincts, and they told her this wasn't good. Zara was hiding something, and she had to find out what it was before things spiraled out of control. That same night, she summoned one of the senior security officers who had worked with their family for years, a man she trusted with sensitive matters. "I want you to quietly follow Zara," she instructed him. "No one must know. Find out who she's seeing. I want details. Everything." The man nodded without questions. He understood the weight of discretion. For the next few days, he followed Zara carefully. He tailed her from the house to her office, from the office to a small restaurant in Saroulaire, where she met a young man. He observed them sitting together, talking, laughing, sometimes holding hands. He noticed how relaxed Zara was around him and how easily she smiled. It didn't take him long to gather information. He found out that the young man was one of their logistics staff, Ebuka Obi. That revelation alone startled the officer. He knew the family standards. A mere logistics staff could never, in any world, be considered a suitable partner for the only daughter of the Adenugas. He returned to Mrs. Adenuga with the details. "Madame, his name is Ebuka Obi," the officer reported. "He works at Adenuga Logistics, junior staff, no position of note." That alone was enough to raise Mrs. Adenuga's alarm, but she needed more. "Find out where he's from, his family, everything," she instructed coldly. The officer wasted no time. Within days, he returned with a full report, which he gave to Mrs. Adenuga. Ebuka Obi is from Enugu State, born and raised in a modest village community. His father died when he was still young, leaving his mother to raise him and his younger brother alone. She sold vegetables in the local market to survive. Despite the odds, Ebuka excelled academically, earning a first-class degree in economics from the University of Nigeria. But life after school had not been kind. No job offers, no financial help. Eventually, he had taken up casual labor, which led him to the wheelbarrow job, and later the logistics position at their company. Mrs. Adenuga read the report in silence, each line confirming her worst fears. This was not the kind of man she wanted anywhere near her daughter. He had no pedigree, no connections, no financial stability, nothing that aligned with the standards they had set for their family. Her irritation grew with every word on the page. She felt betrayed, not by Ebuka, whom she didn't know, but by Zara for daring to entertain such an attachment, for allowing herself to be swayed by what, in her eyes, was nothing more than a distraction from what her life was supposed to be. Her daughter was treading dangerous ground, and she wouldn't stand by and watch it happen, she thought to herself. As she folded the report and tucked it away, she began to devise her next move. Ebuka Obe had to leave her daughter's life, and this time she wouldn't rely on words or warnings, she would act. One Monday morning, about 8 months after Ebuka started working, he arrived at work to find an envelope waiting for him on his desk. It was a letter of termination, cold, official, and without warning. The reason cited was gross misconduct and breach of trust, a claim he knew was completely false. He stood there, reading the letter over and over, trying to make sense of it. No one in the office seemed to have answers. No explanation, no confrontation, just a signed letter and a clear message: he was no longer wanted. He walked out of the building with a heavy heart, the weight of humiliation pressing on his shoulders. But his first instinct wasn't to run home and hide, it was to call Zara. When they met later that evening at their usual quiet spot, he broke the news to her. "I lost my job today," he told her bluntly, his voice calm but strained. "They said I breached trust." "I don't even know what they're talking about." Zara's heart sank. Her parents must have discovered her secret. But, since she had kept her true identity hidden from him, she feigned surprise and hastily promised to investigate, claiming she would speak with the friend who had helped facilitate his employment. Her mother wasted no time. The very next day, Mrs. Adenuga, followed by 2 security men, visited Ebuka's 1-bedroom apartment, one of the men holding a brown envelope, thick and heavy. She didn't mince words. "I am Chief Mrs. Adenuga. I will make this simple," she said. "Leave my daughter, disappear from her life. This is 5 million naira, enough to start over anywhere." Ebuka stared at the envelope, then back at the woman. He was confused, his heart pounding. "Who exactly is your daughter?" he asked quietly. Mrs. Adenuga's face remained expressionless. "You know exactly who I am talking about. Please, understand that you're not wanted. You can't fit in." Ebuka took a long, steady breath. Then he stood without touching the envelope. "I think there might be a mix-up somewhere. First of all, I don't know who you are talking about, and secondly, please keep your money," he said. "I don't need this kind of money." Mrs. Adenuga and her men left his house. That night, Ebuka met Zara again. He didn't hide his confusion. "Who are you, really?" he asked her softly, eyes searching hers. "There's something you're not telling me. Someone warned me off today. Someone powerful." Zara's heart raced. She had fought so hard to keep her identity hidden, but it was clear now there was no more hiding. Ebuka deserved the truth. "My name is Zara Adenuga," she said finally, "daughter of Chief Adewale Adenuga." She watched him closely, waiting for the shock, the anger, the betrayal to settle in his eyes. "I didn't tell you because I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not what I have." Ebuka's expression shifted in disbelief, hurt, and something heavier, something he couldn't voice. "So, all this while," he murmured. Zara reached for his hand. "Please, don't let this change anything." He pulled his hand away gently but firmly. "I can't do this," he said, his voice low but resolute. "Your family will never accept me. They've already started making sure I disappear from your life." "I don't care what they think," Zara protested, but he shook his head. "I do," he said. "Because I don't want to be the reason you fight your family. I don't want to bring trouble to your door. I'm sorry." And with that, he walked away, leaving her standing there, her heart shattering in her chest. The days that followed were hard on Zara. She barely smiled. Ebuka had stopped taking her calls. She stopped paying attention at work. She grew quiet at home, avoiding conversations, barely eating. Her mother noticed. She knew immediately what it meant. Her daughter was still holding on to that boy. She decided that if bribery and threat didn't work, she would try something else. It didn't take long to set the plan in motion. She quietly called her trusted security guard and whispered something in his ear. He nodded and walked away. She smiled to herself, feeling happy and satisfied. Her husband, Chief Adenuga, had no idea what she was planning. She kept her plans a secret from him. Since the night Ebuka walked away from Zara after she revealed her identity, a cold silence had grown between them. Days turned into weeks, and he hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't even tried to see her. She checked her phone more times than she cared to admit, hoping to see a message from him, something to hold on to. But there was nothing. She stopped smiling at work. Her energy was gone. Meetings became tedious. Her staff noticed her moodiness, but she shrugged off their concerns. Inside, she felt empty, carrying the weight of a love she couldn't touch. Then, one afternoon, while she was seated in her office staring blankly at her laptop, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ebuka. Her heart raced as she picked up the phone and opened it, hope flickering faintly inside her. But the words on the screen crushed her. It read, "Thank you, Zara, for everything. You are a good person. But I've made my choice. I'm relocating far away, starting a new life with the woman I truly love. I hope you find happiness too. Take care of yourself." Zara's hand trembled as she read the message again and again. It didn't make sense. It couldn't be true. Her throat tightened, and without thinking, she grabbed her car keys and rushed out of the office. She drove straight to Ebuka's apartment, the small one-room space he had told her about once. Her heart thudded painfully against her chest as she pulled up in front of the compound. She climbed the stairs quickly, her breath shallow, and knocked hard on the faded brown door. No response. She knocked again, louder this time. A neighbour, a middle-aged woman, appeared from the next flat, wiping her hands on a piece of cloth. "You're looking for Ebuka?" the woman asked. "Yes," Zara replied breathlessly. "Is he around?" The woman shook her head casually. "He moved out 2 days ago, packed his things and left, just said he was travelling far." Zara's stomach dropped. She stepped back and peered through the dusty window of his apartment. The curtain had been removed. The room inside was empty. No mattress, no clothes, nothing to suggest that anyone had lived there. Her legs felt weak. She whispered a quiet thank you to the neighbour, though she barely heard herself, and walked back to her car in a daze. Sitting behind the steering wheel, she stared blankly ahead as the message replayed in her head like a cruel echo. Starting a new life with the woman I truly love. Her mother's earlier warnings, the silence that grew between them. It all now felt like truth, Tears filled her eyes, and as she drove away from the compound, her heart broken beyond recognition, she had no idea that what she believed was true was the greatest lie of all. A lie carefully crafted by her own mother, a lie that had just destroyed 2 hearts. Ebuka didn't just disappear. Something terrible had happened to him.